with me today are two individuals who know cybersecurity very well and are going to give us some insights. So whether you're a tech enthusiast, a student, an entrepreneur, you're new to tech, you want to know because you want to protect your data. You want to protect yourself from phishing and attacks. We are going to learn some great insights into what is going on. So I'm going to introduce with us tonight is, many of us know him as ZJ Rush, but with us is Russell Alexander, aka ZJ Rush, media personality and cybersecurity advocate, along with Dan Daly, customer success manager, Lumo Technologies. Gentlemen, welcome to Tech Talk Tuesdays. We want to hear, before we go into the hard hitting questions, a bit about you. What led you into cybersecurity and what persons can expect from this evening's discussion.
So who, me first?
Yes.
All right.
Russell,
All right.
you
Well,
first.
all right. The thing about it is that, like you said, most people know me for music and I guess some social commentary. But the thing about it is, music was something that popped off for me while I was finishing up my computer science degree up at UE and a math degree. So it's always something I was always in. But I don't know. It's just that time in my life to jump back into cybersecurity. So it's not something that I'm 100% new to. But I did take this last year, and I passed every certification known to man. CISSP Security Plus. I did my hacking certifications. I did my PNPT. Blah blah blah. If there's a certification, I probably passed it. But I kind of went back into the cloud because I found the cloud was probably the most interesting thing that I saw on the cyber horizon. So I went mostly into the cloud, and that's it. Like I basically have paused my radio show because I've decided to tell Ja, yeah, so me there. So I'm a techie dude. You know what I mean? So this is my future from this point on, and I'm happy to be here.
Okay, thank you so much. I think I love that, Monica. I'm a techie dude,
Exactly.
right? Right. So thank you. You did every certification. Now, Dean, a lot of our viewers would have known you from another organization that's heavily into cybersecurity, but we just wanted them to give a taste of, your background.
Well, for me, I've been in tech for some time as well, from working at various organizations. The latest one with Lumo is pretty much I'm specializing in security operations. So we know when you're putting in these measures in place, they're being bypassed, they're being evaded because of AI and many other technologies. And what they can't stop using is the network. So we say, hey, using the network, you must get hacked through the network. That's really how it is. If you're not on the network, no one can see you. So we're focused on network. That's pretty much what Lumo does, and to help you manage that. As for me, I try to balance my personal life with professional life. I do a lot of hobbies, fishing, you name it. So as a person, I'm a nature boy. I'm into astronomy, microscopy, and I just started playing golf. From a technical perspective, I like helping organizations solve their security needs and achieve their business goals. Just run it off. No matter where I am, that is the aim.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Dane. Now, in the cybersecurity space, in the tech space, we've heard a lot of myths about cybersecurity. We've heard the fact that, Macs don't get viruses, So, what are some of the myths you've heard and people still believe that is the truth in this, current age of AI where we can ask these questions? What's a myth that you have heard continually within the space?
That's me
Rush,
or then.
go first.
Yes.
Go through, Rush.
Okay. Well, I guess from my point of view, I want to take it from the point of view of not someone with decades of experience like Dane necessarily, but someone that has done so much in a short frame of time, right? For example, passing the CISSP is something that a lot of people say, "Oh wow, it's super difficult." So what I think is a myth is that there's certain things that you can't do. Boy, math hard. Math is kind of the basis of everything that we do in cybersecurity. I mean, it comes down to coding, but at the end of the day, a lot of people have these mindsets that can't do this or I can't do that. And when I started learning in certifying, not learning, in the beginning of this year. I met a lot of people, and I've done more certification wise. I'm not as experienced as them, but there's a lot of things I think people mentally limit themselves as to what they can achieve. So that's the first thing. I think that I like to put my journey on social media because I like to show people that if I can do it, you can do it. You know what I'm saying? That's a big thing mentally. If I was to throw a second myth out there, is that Apple is better than Android, and it's not. PC Linux for life. Yeah. Second myth. Let's just dead that right there. We can finish.
Thank you so much. I just want to pause 1 minute to acknowledge our other guest, Rory Ebanks, director at Simtai Consulting. So, if you have been in the tech space, you'd have seen Rory on TV writing articles. But Rory, just asking to give a brief introduction into, your background in the space.
Hey, good night, everyone. Thanks for having me on the call. It's always interesting to talk about cyber. So my journey started from in high school, actually, when I was exposed to, at the time, floppy disk and malware. That's kind of how I was exposed to cybersecurity. Since then, been doing a lot of research. Rush kind of touched on the certs. So similarly, certification is good, but even outside of certification, you still have to do your own research. So it could be through YouTube, watching videos, just practicing. So I used to do a lot of practice in labs. It's even easier now because you have so many platforms that you can gain access to kind of hone your interest in cyber. If you're really interested in cybersecurity, though, you have to be curious, and that's one of the key things. Outside of my interest in cybersecurity, so I do work at Simtai Consulting. Been here for about 13 years, and has been very interesting around cybersecurity. I do a lot of DIY projects, so I do also do construction. So that's what I do pertaining to my pastime outside of cyber, and I enjoy spending time with my family.
As you should.
All right, thank you so much, Rory. So we were, talking about the myths in cybersecurity. Rush spoke about them a bit and then spoke about his background, touching on education a bit, how persons see some aspects of tech as, I may not be bright or I may not be the best at math. So even if I have an interest in cyber, to not go down that route. And Rush was just bursting that myth to say, listen, you can still do it even if you're not the strongest at math. There's still a way for you to go. But what is the myth that you have heard? I know we've heard some myths that, Mac, Apple don't really get viruses. I don't know if some people still have that belief. Certain products are easier to hack than other products. You know, even in an industry, they would say Kaspersky is better than other brands. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a lot of myths right there. So the one about Apple and Macs versus Android. Well, if you get into the technicality of it, they're really all running on the same architecture beneath it. So
Unix.
the ideal thing is to think about Linux, but we do prefer to use Macs because there's not a high focus when it comes down to malware, but all of them are hackable. Any system is hackable and breakable. So you'll never have a perfect application. You'll never have a perfect network. It doesn't matter the technology that you utilize. There is a way around it. It could be Fort Knox that has been broken. Microsoft spends billions of dollars per year on cybersecurity, and it has been broken. Remember, once you have a human being involved in the process, there can be a flaw. So you don't have to break it from a technical perspective, but someone may write down the password. You maybe do a social engineering exercise and break into the system. And we have really validated that threat factor a lot. So yes, you have all of your firewall, you have invested in cloud security, you do training, but how do you do that type of training? Is it just we made a joke about having this Bob presentation training, meaning PowerPoint presentations, you tick a button to say yes, I've passed and I'm now ready for the world of cybersecurity. But at the end of the day, someone may call you and say, "Hey, I've won an Amazon gift card," and you end up giving out your username and password. It may be as simple as that. Yet, yes, you have done your cyber awareness training. So, in the world of cybersecurity, anything can be broken if you have enough time and patience. There are ways around it, so especially when the attackers are craving that revenue. They will find a way to bypass a control. They will find a way to break into that product and that solution. So don't think that every single solution out there is perfect and will never be broken into.
Okay, thanks so much, Rory. Dave, you want to touch on that a bit?
Well, 2 minutes for me. First off, my data is not important. Many people think that just giving out my name and information to all these various open source applications, why do I need to give a flashlight access to my phone's contacts just to turn on the light, right? So giving away information, my data, it's just this, so it's not going to do anything. So that's the first thing is one throw up there. Your data is everything. That's king, that's key, and that's worth more than money right now. And another one is just because it's nothing is broken or nothing is happening doesn't mean it's safe and secure. So there are a lot of things running in the background, like information stealers. They want to say very anonymous inside the network, stealing information. And next thing you know, someone is trying to contact you, somebody, some strange person is contacting you out of anywhere, right? So if you give out the information and if it's not broken, that means nothing is wrong with it. These are two myths that not just individuals, but also organizations need to understand when it comes to cybersecurity.
Okay, thank you so much. Now, since we are on that, and you mentioned some, I know you touched on phishing, the Amazon gift card, the flashlight accessing, because sometimes you just do updates, like you just get a phone and you update, you don't really check, you don't really know, it's like, oh, this is gonna improve, so we're not checking. However, that lends to my upcoming question. What strategies are shaping the industry? Or better yet, what are some of the threats to businesses and individuals this year? Dane, I heard you mention data, and we've seen breaches throughout the year. Persons calling you and saying, oh, your account needs to be this, and you give the information, and then when you look, money is leaving the account. Have we seen an increase in AI-driven cyber attacks?
Great question. The first thing we start with is the first issue is vulnerabilities in your security stack, which means that what was secure yesterday, rest assured, might not be secure the next hour or the next day. So managing vulnerabilities, there's like a ton of vulnerabilities that came out within the first 4 weeks of the year that many people are patching. Another issue is that people are not patching them as easy. So it's bypassing that first line of defense. Then we have another thing called EDR bypass. EDR used to be the lock and key for your network and your individual devices, but they're now easily being bypassed by very simple and easy techniques. So those are two main things I want to shout out that is affecting businesses right now. And then there's another thing, people, processes, and technologies. There's a shortage of cybersecurity professionals. There's a shortage of processes, like, we have DPA right now, but before we didn't have it. We're now still implementing the Data Protection Act as well as Cyber Crimes Act. And then by extension, the technologies that enforce it. If you don't have a policy, you don't have the people to maintain it, because AI will never fully take over, right? It's a tool. If there's no people to feed the AI, and there's another thing about AI, AI can also be poisoned, because AI is like a 2-year-old child, at least for the first couple of hours of it learning. If I feed it garbage, it's going to output garbage. So if I can poison the AI to do fuzz it and give it other information that is erroneous, then it's going to give you erroneous information. So those are the top 3 things for me are the top main issues.
Okay. Rush, your thoughts, because I know you're coming in from, persons from a different perspective who may not be the most tech savvy. What are your thoughts around some of the trends that you're seeing?
Well, I can say it from a few perspectives. One of the things that I'm seeing a lot of is obviously deepfakes, right? That's not just vocal anymore, because if you look at what's happening right now, the image deepfakes, especially since the whole Chinese AI has been introduced, are insane. Like, it really gotten to a point where you cannot tell with just the naked eye. You definitely need software. And a lot of the times I'm on social media, and I'm one always discussing a wide range of issues from politics to everything. And so many people share me posts that they don't know are deep fakes. Rush, you see what Trump said, and to me, it's literally obvious that that was not, a real video or a real audio. And I'm saying to myself, if these people don't know that, then what happens when the real serious deepfakes come next? Then what? You know what I'm saying? And these aren't like necessarily people that are outside of the tech sphere. It is not like my mother or my grandmother who are barely struggling to send an email. You know what I'm saying? If these people, young people, don't know, then it's going to be a problem. I do want to jump on and add on something to what Dane said, which is the AI being young also, because there's two things about AI. One, if you don't know how to prompt AI, it will lead you down the entire wrong road and will also justify it. So if you ask it the wrong questions, it's gonna almost reply with an answer of what you ask, but it might not necessarily be the correct answer. So you can go down any rabbit hole you want with AI, and it will be 100%. You'll reinforce something that is already wrong. So you have to be very, very careful with AI, especially since people have it as this authority because it's so easy. Well, why go through 10 Google searches or 10 start page searches when I can just ask AI? But this reliance on something that is not an authority is dangerous. So you can mislead and go with this with the worst information because AI don't necessarily know what it's doing all the time. There's a problem, you know. The last thing I think people need to be very careful of is that when I'm practicing exploiting machines and I run into a situation where there's an exploit that needs to be adjusted to infiltrate a machine, AI, especially some of them, not necessarily Gemini, but especially the other one, them, if you go say and you word your thing right, it will create an exploit for you. So the days when you need to be an expert in JavaScript or an expert in Python or C++ or some coding language done. If you have enough skills and enough intelligence to be able to prompt, you can create an exploit, which means that everybody right now is vulnerable.
And just as dangerous because it's no sophistication right now to become a hacker.
Exactly.
If you prompt it for something malicious, if you put hypothetical into it, then it will give it to you. And in no time, you're a hacker, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
Well, I know that, on the course of hacking and Rory, hopefully you can give us some more insight on that. Rush spoke about deep fakes. I mean, a couple years ago, there was a picture of the Pope in a Balenciaga puffer jacket. People are circulating it. So we know it was a deep fake because, I've never seen the Pope in any brands that are, like that, looking like a hip hop star. So when I saw it, I'm like, that is definitely a deep fake, but it was circulated so much on the internet. So with what is happening, and we've heard about deepfakes, persons, calling the grandmother and say, I'm arrested, send me some money. And it sounds just using your voice. So what do you see as the challenge for businesses and the individuals? We know that they can do some kidnapping things, they can do so many criminal activities. We know the AI can be corrupted because it's what it's put in, depending on how it's prompted. Give some guidance to the businesses and individuals, the ones who, yes, we know we're in tech, but for the ones who are very new to this, what are some things that they should look out for?
Well, but before I even give some advice and some tips, there's more scary trends out there that you need to look out for 2025. So Rush would have touched on the biggest one, which is deep fake, and it's leveraging the audio and the visual. But what's also scary is that even if you don't have the technology, if you don't have the creative nature to leverage some of those tools that's out there, you can take a different approach. And it's called, so for example, ransomware as a service. What attackers are doing now is they're literally going to the dark web and just paying a couple $100 to compromise an organization or to purchase a ransomware. So instead of them being able to code, again, Rush and Dean kind of touched on it. You don't have to be tech savvy to write a code or to write an exploit. You can literally go and purchase it. You can even ask AI to write codes for you. They do have, so like how you have Chat GPT, they do have the security version of Chat GPT that you can leverage. So those are out there where you can easily enter information about the IP address and you'll find all assets related to it. You enter email address or a domain name. So let's say you're targeting simtai.com, enter simtai.com, list out all of the vulnerabilities associated with it. And it will even show you the steps that you can utilize to exploit it. So it's becoming easier and easier to leverage the I would say the dark web to purchase ways to compromise an organization or even to compromise persons. So again, instead of trying to write an exploit to break into a system, why not just pay a few $100 and get access to that? We've seen data being sold on the dark web, 10 US, 15 US, even sometimes free. Compromised credentials are out there, username and password to log into email addresses. So you don't have to think about cybersecurity as being that technical or that advanced. Yes, you have those stages and levels, but you also have the script kiddies where they literally just press a button and the information is there and they can exploit it. While you can get the more technical nature, which is kind of what we delve into at Simtai. So we try to exploit vulnerabilities in applications, networks, cloud. We do the social engineer, but for attackers out there, it's becoming easier and easier for them to gain access to information, to launch those threat actors, to exploit them, to identify weaknesses. And when you start layering AI into it, it's becoming more scary. So deep fake, ransomware as a service, even using AI in malware. So having malicious software where your EDRs, your endpoint detection system, can't even identify this as a malware because the malicious software is changing its processes, it's changing its that each time a antivirus would flag it, it's becoming something else. So now it's becoming generative and it's changing its forms and fashion to try and even look like a legitimate software. So it's a lot that we can speak about when it comes on to the threats. And what I would say to keep it simple in terms of recommendation, be very aware. So do as much security awareness training as possible. Test yourself, test your user. I wouldn't even say that having a strong password is even a good thing because it can still be broken. Because you can have that complex password and yet you log into a application that's vulnerable and your password get exposed, and that's easily available on the dark web. Still good practice to utilize strong passwords, have multi-factor authentication, use a trusted password manager, have your antivirus in place, endpoint protection and response, notifications. We can list it all out, but what I've seen is that we have been listing out all of these recommendations for years, and I can give testimony to that. Years they may be talking to companies about, hey, patch this server, fix this vulnerability, and yet they don't do anything about it. We're doing penetration tests year after year, you're finding the same stuff. However, when there's a breach, that's when they become reactive. Meaning you have to burn down the building, you have to exploit the vulnerability for them to start saying, okay, I'm going to spend some money on cybersecurity now. I'm going to take the effort to harden my environment, always being reactive. But yet we still have to preach it.
You mentioned something about companies not being reactive and not proactive. Do you believe that we need to ethically hack some of these organizations to show them what is possible so that ahead of their budget they put these things in place? Because having been a part of JTDA for years, we've heard about different attacks, and the IT managers, IT directors are saying, we've made these recommendations. Do you believe that we need to simulate attacks so that they know what is possible before they take place?
So like you want to put people in jail,
No,
Alexa.
I
You
don't want to
have to
put
be
people in
careful
jail.
with
No, the reason why
so
I'm a bit nervous, we mentioned the dark web, we mentioned ransomware as a service, going on the dark web and hiring persons, and this is our information. We know that data is king. I'm a bit concerned because you don't know. So what should we do to show what is possible? Do we need to do a demo of a department, not the organization, to show the vulnerabilities so that those are patched without, reaching out to any of you on here? I'm saying, what can we do for them, the powers that be, to really understand what is out there? Because based on what you're saying, Rory, the AI with the ransomware is morphing into a software. So how can we show persons who may not be have a tech background, may not be reading the YouTube articles that listen, the tech is moving faster with AI, and this is what needs to be done as prevention more than being reactive.
Yeah, so definitely the penetration test and the security assessments are important. However, you have to have approval from the organizations to do it. So one of the things that's kind of lacking in Jamaica is responsible disclosure. I don't think there's a lot of organizations that have a product or a way for you to identify vulnerabilities and responsibly disclose them to the organization without facing any penalties. And I think that has to be in place for us to really take advantage of some of the vulnerabilities. So for example, my threat intel team would identify a lot of vulnerabilities on the dark web. They would identify if organizations are in discussion boards, if there's going to be a compromise. However, if you don't have a relationship with that organization and you bring the information to them, they will ask the first question, why did you test my system? They may not look on it and say, oh, thank you for identifying this weakness. How can I fix it? What will be the next steps? So not all of them are receptive. We do engage a lot of organizations that are not our customers, and we may bring this information to them. But in some instances, they may become very defensive and start asking the question about why did you test it? And we have had a few use cases of that. I think a few years ago with the AWS that was open on the government website, and a person on Twitter would have started to say, hey, this is a vulnerability, fix it. And then the first defense was that, why did you test it or why did you identify it? So you have to be very careful how you trend when it comes on to identifying vulnerabilities. You have to have the permission. You have to explicitly state that you are going to be contractually agreed to test the system. So even when you have that permission, you can't go and test IP addresses or systems outside of the scope. You have to be constrained to within that scope. So you have to tread a very careful line in terms of how you identify and how you disclose it.
All right, thank you so much for that, Dane. Rush, you want to chime in that regard? How can we get the companies, the directors, the powers that be to open up a bit so that we can protect them, protect their data, protect their customers?
Well, the thing about it is that um, cybersecurity is like car insurance. Nobody wants to pay for car insurance. You just want to spend as much money as you can and buy the new Porsche because you're interested in a nice smooth ride that look good and have the big wheels. Everything else is just a headache. So at the end of the day, trying to get someone to spend even extra money, boy, that car insurance is not enough. You need to pay more for it. Nobody know why hear that. You see me? And at the end of the day, the thing about it is that the heads of corporations speak business. They speak money. A corporation is really here to talk money. End of the day, what do they deliver to their board of directors? What is their share price? How much money are they making? So if you want to convince senior management that they need to do something, you have to put it in a context of the language they speak, which is business. So if you can um, contain something, if you can frame it in the frame of potential losses and the risk and the potential for this risk to actually be um for actually happen. Why this happened to a company down the road, this happened to that company. X amount of percentages of companies have had these attacks within the last XYZ amount of weeks or months. Then you start to speak the dollars and cents that a CEO or a CFO speaks. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to spend extra money, especially for something like tech. Because in Jamaica, especially, and our vibe around here, oh, this is new. It's like, and it's not just big companies. A big company might have a bigger chance, but try going into like a doctor's office or a dentist's office and say, boy, you need to spend X amount of more money on something that they don't even understand what on earth you're talking about. So it has to be framed in a way that they can understand, relating to, boy, the office down the road, Dr. XYZ just got hacked and lost $3.7 million in 5 minutes. No, them I say, okay, wow, now I'm paying attention. But other than that, you're telling somebody to spend more money on car insurance and nobody don't want to do that.
Right. Thanks so much,
Yeah,
Rush, for
yeah.
that
I
analogy.
want to add on to that, to Alexa, because there's a lot of research out there, and one of them that I like to look on is the IBM cost of a data breach. So what we have seen in 2024 is that I think it's 63% of organizations say that they will increase their spend on security after a cyber breach. The year before, in 2023, was about 51%. So again, the reactive approach is always being taken, or most times it's being taken. Something bad have to happen to me. As Rush mentioned, the building have to burn down, or application have to be down. They have to start losing some money for them to say, okay, yes, I have to go and invest now. A perfect example, I'm not afraid to call name. Bureau of Standard of Jamaica got hit in 2024. A few weeks after they got hit, they spent 230,000 US dollars in a few weeks to invest in their cybersecurity and also to try and recover. If they had taken 10% or even 20% of that budget before and be proactive by starting to do the penetration test, harden their network, think about having a framework in place, it wouldn't have cost so much money. But again, organizations are always reactive and not necessarily want to be proactive when it comes on to cybersecurity. So if we start changing that culture and that narrative, because again, a lot of companies offer security solutions, security services. You don't even have to pay for some of these services. You can get trials, you can get demos for them. You can start with the least level, but at least start doing something. Security awareness training is cheap. You're looking at $1 per user per month. You can even go on YouTube and have free sessions. You have free platforms out there. But if you're not taking that initiative until something bad happens to you, that's when you want to invest in cybersecurity. That's a bad mentality and that's a bad approach. And it's not just in Jamaica or the Caribbean. This is worldwide we're talking about.
I will chip one more thing in on on what Rory just said. Sorry, Dean. Um, the thing I'm going to chip in on it is that the more I have been introduced to cybersecurity and cloud security, and I'm in the business and I'm talking to people, is to realize is the more I can just imagine Dan and what Rory know, the amount of hacks and infiltrations and breaches that I hear about constantly now. The problem is that they aren't public. So, like Rory was just saying, until your building burned down, you don't want to do anything about it. But one thing about it is if the building next door to you burns down, you might have an incentive. The problem is that a lot of buildings are burning down, but nobody knows because these companies are keeping it hush hush because it's not a good look. Oh, this, that limited has just got a huge break, and it makes the company look like they're not doing what they need to do to protect their clients and their clients' data. So everything is this little hush 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 thing, and the average person has no idea that every single car around them has crashed. The engine on the 9 Porsches on the road blow up already, but you don't know. So you still drive your own, and you now do the little fix. So it's a thing about this keep it to yourself culture, which I get from a business point of view, but it is not helping cybersecurity.
Um, Thanks for that, Rush. Before I go today, and I do believe that there's legislation that once there's a data breach, it needs to be reported by a certain time. So we can only hope that these companies who need to keep it hush hush will comply with the legislation so that they are not fined, and that
Sorry,
those
again?
who are aware, and those who are aware will make the relevant authorities know so that the customers will be on high alert in case there are any phishing or ransomware attacks. That's all. Dane?
Let me start by saying in my years here and helping out with a lot of these breaches in the reactive sense, one of the frightening things I saw is when you're investigating a cyber incident or a breach and you're seeing malware artifacts inside a customer's environment. Like the original create date was there for like 3 years. And it's not until the actual breach occurred and something is happening that we realize that something was there. And in a lot of cases, it's not even the same person that breached them is the one that or ransomware them that stole the information 3 years ago. So what Rory alluded to, they're selling information. If you watch Lord of War, where he sells guns and ammunitions, but he doesn't shoot the people. This is exactly what is happening. That's whole thing called Silk Road. Trump part of it, but that whole Silk Road concept where I used to sell the attacks, I sell the breaches and compromises, and I don't do the actual bad stuff. Now, what will help us now is people process technology. There has to be some legislations around this, and it has to be enforced. If that is not there, and of course, necessary repercussions if they are not followed. For example, if there's no policy or even an internet use policy to go to an illicit website, and I go to an illicit website on the company network, and you come try to apprehend me, and I'm looking in the HR book to say, hey, there's nothing around this, oops, I'm sorry, right? There's no implications if there is if there's no policy around it, and of course you put in the necessary technologies on top of that. So it boils down to the powers that we must put and enforce these people, processes, and technologies in place. And if something should happen, there must be some at least baseline, secure baseline that everyone must follow, and show that it's not due to negligence that caused a breach. Because if you're going to get breached, you're going to get breached. But what you want to do is reduce the impact of that breach, decrease the time to detect, and then increase the time, and also decrease the time to respond. These things must put in policy and then apply that now to your business, and you reduce the likeliness of an attack or a breach. And if something does happen, it is detected as soon as possible and mitigated within milliseconds, because we can't look at days, we can't even look at seconds. These things are happening in milliseconds, picoseconds, right? So it's really the people, process, and technology. The people could be an external body, could be people internally, but they must follow some policy and procedure, and by extension, the technologies must be in place. Because we can't function fast. I don't know about Rory or Russell, but I can respond to a cybersecurity incident within milliseconds, and that's how fast it is. Because the computers are just simply faster. Trend, you're going to see quantum computing going to be a thing in the future, but we'll go to the future after that, and AI became a thing. But yeah, people process technology.
Going to go to that, but you touched on it, Dane, about the technology moving faster than we can, but it also lends to what I want to touch on next with it, cyber hygiene and data protection. You spoke about the illicit websites going online on your company network, but with data privacy laws evolving, what are key compliance measures that businesses should focus on for 2025?
Let me start. So the Data Protection Act is a good start, but it only focuses on specific types of data, which is PII, if I recall correctly. But there are other forms of data that doesn't necessarily align with persons per se, could be aligned with businesses. Now, there has to be policies around. Until we fully embrace the Data Protection Act, there's a lot of standards out there, the HIPAA, which is Health Information Protection, and school information for kids, right? Protecting schools and so forth. So we can adapt existing, known, and trusted frameworks, use those. And in my opinion, once we reach that point in Jamaica, we're already ahead of the game, because if you're already following GDPR, you're pretty much 90% of the way into DPA. We're pretty much is modeling that trusted framework. So we're using these frameworks, ask questions, find the people, the organizations. If you can't do it, you don't know, you need help, ask for the help, get the help. There's a lot of POCs, freeware, freemiums that are going on out there. Monitor your network, right? There are a lot of EDR bypasses, firewall bypasses. There are a lot of frameworks you can monitor your network for anomalous behaviors. And these things should be a part of your policy. And if something should happen, investigation is, did everything you could? Did you follow the procedures? And some. And then we can say, hey, we don't have to fine you for this, because that's another thing. It's a lot of money. It's going to be, I assume it's going to go up a lot more, the fines. But people, process, technology, again, that's what I'm going to focus on, where hygiene is concerned.
Thanks, Dave. Rory?
I can expound on that. So when it comes down to privacy, one of the first things you need to think about is privacy by design or security by design. So looking on the architecture, firstly, what data are you going to collect? Why do you need to collect this data? So in the JDPA, it would be a DPIA. So data privacy or protection impact assessment. So you have to assess what data you have, why you're collecting it, what are you going to do with the data, and then you think about how you're going to secure it. If you don't need to be collecting that data, then lessen your risks by not actually collecting it. Because the more data you collect, then you have to start thinking about the principles of confidentiality, integrity, availability, and how you're going to secure it at all of those avenues. So when you start having that architecture in place from the ground up, then you can build the different layers and controls in place around securing your data at rest, in transit, all of these different tools, technology, having a data loss prevention tool or protection tool to monitor your data. It could be even in the cloud, ensure that you have access controls, notifications, who is sending an email, are they authorized to send this email, would you get a notification if a TRN is sent out through that avenue. So you start having a thought about all of the ways that you can pretty much protect your data, and also if your data is leaked, how would you detect it? So do you have any monitoring in place, any dark web monitoring or tools to identify that you had a data leak, that your data is now in the dark web, so that you can start taking actions and steps to remedy it? So if you're just looking on it from a policy perspective, but still not layering the different tools and technology that Dean is mentioning, you have to have that defense in depth. And from an architectural perspective, think about the different layers of security that you're putting in.
All right, thanks for that, Rory. Russell, do you want to chime in on?
Yeah, well, I mean, they covered a lot. Dane and Roy covered a lot. What I will add on is a little bit of my personal experience because um I have a bunch of computers around me, right? So one of my studio computers was a computer that I purposely went and I disabled Windows updates because I couldn't stand that every single time I got used to, to using my computer one way, Microsoft would change it and update it into something else. And even after I disabled automatic updates, it would still do it. So I went and I actually wrote a script to make sure that I disabled all rights to Windows Update. And I want to tell you, this was before I jumped into cybersecurity. And I've never considered myself someone that is non-techie. I've always been that guy. And when I'm doing something like that, it makes me think about what everybody else is doing. Because what people don't understand about patching, for example, auto updates and patching, is that once Microsoft or whoever, whatever software you're using, releases a security patch or a critical vulnerability, they're basically broadcasting to every single hacker that this vulnerability exists. So when they would say, "Hey, guess what? No, guys, you need to hurry up and patch this because boy, it leads to remote access to your system and control of your um somebody can get domain admin on your whatever." Basically, a hacker that didn't know that is now aware, like, oh, like, for real, how? So if you don't patch immediately, then with a little bit of tooling and scripting, you're automatically telling a man, not only are you accessible, but how to access you. Oh, well, if he hasn't patched within the whatever, then all I need to do is run this script. So there are things like that that are just that's just an add-on, just the whole patching side of the thing. Um, very dangerous. And I can testify, I am just coming from that. And one more thing I would say is that, like what Dane said a while ago, you can't stop yourself from being hacked. It's just the nature of the world. It is what it is. At the end of the day, you want to limit the damage that's done, like Dane said, how quickly you detect that you were hacked and how little you can give up and etc. So one of the things I will add on is the necessity to back up. Sometimes you just have to have a backup. So when you get some wicked ransomware or somebody has totally compromised the system and everything is gone and down, you can say, well, boy, at the end of the day, and I back up constantly, whether live or every night or etc., depending on the nature of the criticality of the data. So backing up is another thing that you have to do, because having the mindset that, boy, my car will never crash, it's unreasonable. So that's something you just want to put in place, just knowing that, well, when it happens, the accident is not going to be as severe as it could have been, and I can recover.
Thank you so much, Russell. I know many of us are trying to prevent accidents, but they will have. We're trying to lessen the effect of the accidents because some accidents will write you off. So
Right.
we get what you're saying there. We have a question from an audience member. Nicholas Samuels asks, security and AI solutions is the next frontier for cyber. AI is getting better at automating processes, but is the data it stores secure?
Who is that to?
So anybody?
I'm throwing it out there to all of
But
you.
all right, let me chime in first quickly. The thing about artificial intelligence is that it's new, and a question like that is kind of like asking somebody, well, the internet has just been created 6 months ago, or it's now become widespread for the last year. So what's going to happen next? I mean, I don't think there is a definitive, from my point of view, there's a definitive answer when it comes down to artificial intelligence yet. Because yes, artificial intelligence is being used in defense. You know, you can use it defensively for sure. You can also use it offensively. And I feel like right now we're in the wild web. I mean, literally, we're in the days of the frontier of the American cowboy days, where everything is almost developing, and every day there's something new. So the answer to me kind of goes back to basic principles, where you just want to follow basic cybersecurity principles as much as you can. You still have your MFAs, you know. You make sure you have your MFAs. You stay updated with your patches. You follow zero trust, least privilege. If you follow the basic stuff, that's pretty much the best you can do to me at this point in the thing. Because I mean, like in AI, tomorrow just feels like a new whole year, and what people were talking about last year feels like the 70s. So it's such a quickly evolving field that you don't really have to just stick to basic principles.
Yeah, well, when you think about this question, as Joshua said, it's kind of open ended because when you look at AI, even simple as ChatGPT, before you start using it, it will warn you, don't put sensitive information in it, right? Why would it give you that warning or that prompt? A lot of the chatbots will give you that. And the idea is that you don't know where the data is stored, who is processing it, who has access to it, what type of prompts or commands you're giving it. Even like Alexa was doing a recent research about Alexa and how Alexa automatically saves your commands, saves your information without you even knowing, unless you opt out for it when you're going to your Alexa app. But who has access to that information? Who processes it? And what can they do with that information? Those are some of the questions that you have. It's a very valid question, but you don't know who is really managing these infrastructure if you just opt into a free service or even just sign up to one of these services. So you have to be careful where you access, and this goes to everything, not just AI related application, but generally what Wi-Fi you connect on. Is it open? Does it have encryption in place? What applications do you log into? How do you access your internet banking? What type of apps do you use? How is that information collected and processed? So you have to be very careful when it comes down to that. But you can look at the fine prints. A lot of time, these organizations, they would have like SOC 2 reports or SOX reports and attestation reports that will tell you about some of the controls that are in place in the data center. Even like when you think about the cloud, depending on the controls that you have configured, you can set notification that, and this is just an example like Microsoft Cloud, you can set it so if they're going to access data, they have to send you a notification and you have to allow it. However, by default, some of these settings aren't necessarily enabled. So again, you have to read the fine prints. You have to look on all of these different agreements that you sign into, your consent form. So even when you're installing your apps, and I think Dane started with this example, you're having a flashlight asking for access to your phone book, your pictures. Most of the times you are the one that opt into how they're going to process your data. And then at the end, you're going to complain to say, why you have all of my data or why you doing this to it? You didn't secure it. So just be careful of the neighborhoods that you're in and the apps that you're using and the services that you're using.
I would go on to say that a lot of these new tools were not designed with security in mind. And you heard about deepfake, what all of the the data was publicly available. If you take a little time to look, been able to access from the deepfakes. A lot of these things, they want to get it out running as soon as possible. And that's why this is a very great question. They didn't design it with security in mind. And a lot of testing and fuzzing has to take place before they realize everything that could actually go wrong. And unfortunately, we used to China because it's cheaper, it was less secure. But this was an example of that. Because one with more money, you didn't hear about any form of breaches, but the one with less money ended up having pretty much all of the information. And again, we are giving the system that information. Similar to social media, we're giving the AI selfies. They said selfie was invented by a government agency, but you're giving pretty much a three-dimensional view of your face, and they can map it and use it how they please. You're giving away this information. 90% of us, 99% of us, has never read the terms and agreement of what we're signing into. We are liars. We didn't read and understand it, and we click, we do, and we move on with our lives. So we're giving all these things away, and unknowingly, just for the functionality that we want. Sometimes it's just novel. Sometimes it really and truly is, in my opinion, sometimes careless how we operate sometimes. So we have to be more smart about it.
Thank you so much, Dane. We have a question from one of our attendees saying, who should be contacted if I get hacked? Which I think is a really great question. If you feel like you have ransomware, malware, phishing, if you are, Rush mentioned earlier, smaller business, if you're a doctor's office versus a larger distribution versus a larger entity, what are the processes? Like, what's the first step?
I guess I'll move on from there. So it's unfortunate that we have this question because this information is actually out there. OIC will tell you who to contact. There's a lot of information about what to do that is out there, and it's unfortunately not everyone has access to it for some reason. So if you're a business, the Jamaica CERT is one place, and the OIC. And if you're working for an organization, then you should tell your IT department, and then the IT department should know who to contact. And if they don't have the people, processes, and technologies in-house, then they go to places like Simtai or whatever other organization for assistance with that. In some instances, you're going to have to call the police, right? If it's something that you want to proceed to prosecute, that's technically where the police comes in. But right off the back, Jamaica CERT, the OIC, the police, right? They should have information to tell you, at least be able to tell you where to go. And any other MSP, managed security providers, and security consultants should be able to direct you from there.
Yeah, you can also reach out to like Mocha also, and actually Crime Stop. So they actually have a link.
Accepting it now?
Yeah, so you call them and you can report it, and it will also be processed.
Right.
That's why I put overall police. I know I never remember the exact departments for each. Awesome.
Yeah, and outside of all of those official forums that you have to contact, also ensure if it's a personal attack, contact your family members, because sometimes they may pivot and try to spread that compromise to others that's connected to you, or they may actually try to contact your friends, your family, to try to get to you. So even like targeting a CEO for the business, they may not target the CEO work email address. They may target the personal email address, and then that personal account may be linked or tied to a family account. Maybe they have Apple Family, so everybody start getting impacted and spread. So think about the persons that are close to you also.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Dane, Rory. And just for those who may not know the acronym, OIC, Office of Information Commissioner, Nicholas put it up, Jamaica Cyber Incident Response Team. Just for those who may not know, I know we like to use a lot of acronyms, but for those who don't know, please mention JCF. JCF has a tech branch, and then MOCA is a separate entity from the Jamaica Constabulary Force. So I just want persons to know that JCF has a tech branch, MOCA is a separate entity from JCF. So, those are some organizations. If you don't know, please note. And as mentioned earlier, if you know of, based on the legislation, you know of a ransomware attack, any attacks, you should report it. so that your customers, vendors, your information is protected. So if you hear of it, I know a lot of organizations want to keep it hush hush, but you should report when when you're undergoing an attack. That is what the legislation calls for at the moment. No, I know we could sit here and speak on the different aspects of cybersecurity, but what are some predictions and future proofing? I know then Russell Rory, we touched on it, but we want some clear things. If you had to do one big prediction for cybersecurity in the next 5 years, what would it be? We know that technology is moving not at seconds but milliseconds. What do you see in the next? I wouldn't even say 5. Let me correct myself. In the next year.
Who
I
started?
started last time. Yeah, Russell.
All right. I'll jump in. What I would say as a prediction for me is that you have to be aware of what's happening. Because I have friends right now that are saying to me, boy, I'm going to make a friend of mine take start an Instagram page for me and control it. And you can't fall behind, right? And I said that to say that, I mentioned it on social media the other day that you have some old people that still don't know how to send an email. And the world is only going forward, it's not going backwards. There's never going to be a day where you're going to start writing letters again. Email not changing, social media not changing. And you have to look at the trends and stay current. No, I said that to say there are some industries that are going to be heavily impacted by artificial intelligence and machine learning. For example, the days of a graphic designer just going to work and doing this normal thing in Adobe and Illustrator and blah, 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 Lightroom. You have to be careful because those there feels like that, and as well as even programming that are going to be heavily impacted by artificial intelligence, for example. So get with it, get with it. And I'm not going to say that programming is ever going to disappear. I'm not that person that's saying artificial intelligence is going to take away the profession, but it will take away the jobs of lazy people. So if you feel like the ways that you were doing things in 1973 or even 2020 are still going to work, they're not. So if you're a programmer, learn how to incorporate artificial intelligence into your day-to-day activity. If you are a XYZ, think about the way that these new trends are going to impact your job. Because if you don't, I guarantee you, your job is shaky. So become that person now that is not, boy, me just hope and pray artificial intelligence or the new trends will take away my job. Become the person that says, I am going to use these new technologies to benefit myself looking towards the future. Are you going to get left? That's my prediction.
Thanks, Russell. Rory.
Yeah, so I think we've touched on a lot of great points. And when you think about the future, what I would say is practice defense in depth. So ensure that you have multiple layers of protection that is implemented to protect you, to notify you, to monitor you. Again, we can spend a whole session talking about the different facets of technology that can be leveraged. Ensure, and Russ just touched on it about leveraging AI, because the attackers are utilizing it. So in your defensive approach, you have to also utilize AI. Think about your landscape, try and identify as much threats, as much risk as possible, and continue to implement the controls to protect against those threat factors. Because it can't be a case where today you say you do a pen test or you have implemented a firewall and then you're just going to forget about that until the next year. You have to adapt and be much more proactive when it comes on to cybersecurity. So you can't just bring it at a particular level and forget about it, and ensure that everybody is trained. So think about the weakest link as being a human aspect. Yes, you're layering your technology, your tools, your firewall, antivirus, but at the end of the day, the humans are going to be the weakest link. 74% of breaches have some type of human element involved in it, meaning we always want to click on a link, we want to win something, we want to win a prize. The lot of scamming was so successful because everybody think that yeah man, I miraculously just won some money, right? So the human element has a big role to play in it, and with the advancement of AI, it's going to be easier for them to leverage those tools to launch attacks. When we create some deep fake attacks, the organizations can't even differentiate between the CEO, the real CEO, and the one that we created. The only tweak is that the patois is not at its level at yet in the deep fake. So that's what's saving us now, because a lot of the AIs that's
Interesting.
been utilized is using standard English. So for example, my team always try to create deep fake with me. So they would load up YouTube videos, load it in the AI database, but when it starts talking, it has a little accent, and I said, no, I don't sound just like that. So you have to look out. But in 2 years' time, the technology is going to catch up with itself, because we're now seeing ChatGPT having patois voices. Still not the real patois, but at least they're making an effort to get to it.
Thanks so much, Rory. Dane.
The good thing with you, Rory, if the person doesn't know you, they may not be able to tell the difference. So it may work on a stranger. Close friends, yes, which is probably a very small group of people, but the rest of the 3 million Jamaicans might get fooled. For me, let's start with some predictions. Monitoring the network for threats, because everything has to go through the network. I think that's a key aspect that we need to start adopting more. Monitoring and looking for anomalous behaviors in the networks. AI and quantum computing, everything's going to get faster. We're going to move from milliseconds to picoseconds to zeta-seconds, right? Everything's going to get faster, and we're going to send out more information. Another frightening thing for me is supply chain attacks, and what that means is certain key supply chains of goods and services, if they're attacked or they're brought down, which is a key thing for a lot of these nation state attackers. We have them, for example, when it could be a human attack or it could be technology-based attack. If that goes down, for example, the ports, everybody is affected, right? If that goes down, so everything's gonna get faster. The faster we can detect using AI the attacks, the faster we can respond, isolate, and reduce the impact. And lastly, the adoption of user and entity behavior analysis. AI will determine, say, hey, this person's gait, the way they walk, or the rhythm of how they speak is not the same, or not how it should be. We're going to start adapting the behavior analysis. And UEBA, user behavior analysis, is not even new. It's just that it's not as adapted right now, especially for persons that are working remotely. Why is the person working in Jamaica and they have connections or VPNs coming in from China, Russia, and the USA, and they're physically here, especially if they're not even at work? So that is something that we may need to adapt closer in the future.
All right. Thank you so much, Dane. We are so grateful to have all of you here with us. Russell, Dane, Rory. If it's one word, no, we're wrapping up, but if it's one word you love to leave with our attendees, persons who may rewatch the webinar, what would that be? One thing to just summarize what they need to do, just pitching on it briefly. If it's one word or just a quick sentence to hammer home why it is important to beef up, as Russell would say, the car insurance or the cybersecurity insurance. I'm going to term it that, the cybersecurity insurance. What is that one line to say, listen, remember, this is what needs to be done? Russell, I'm going to start with you.
All right, my one word is discipline. And I said discipline because if anybody knows me or has listened to anything I've said on social media, I think anything in life is achievable as long as you stay disciplined, and I'm going on a broad spectrum, not just on cybersecurity, because yes, it applies to cybersecurity, and yes, you have to follow the rules and least privileges, blah blah blah. But on a bigger scale, I'm kind of speaking to everybody listening, everybody in Jamaica, discipline, because my whole story that I'm trying to tell with me switching from music into cybersecurity is anything can be done, but it's not going to necessarily be easy, but it can be done. So just stay disciplined, whether it's health, whether it's cybersecurity, whether you're trying to change a job, whatever it is. Discipline is my one word for everybody listening, for Jamaica, for the entire world. Just stay disciplined.
Thank you so much, Russell. Rory, the one word.
So I have one word and one value that I always use: curiosity. And you have to be curious to want to understand and to want to improve on yourself. And also, it's the same when we're testing, when we're trying to identify weaknesses. It's the same approach that you have to take when you're also trying to harden your environment, harden yourself, improve yourself. Be curious and try to understand as much as possible, and don't limit yourself. And my two phrases: get tested.
Thanks, Rory. Dane.
That was awful. I don't know. Roy. For me, I'm a big philosophy fan, and my quote will come from Sun Tzu, The Art of War. If you know your enemy and yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know yourself, but not the enemy, for every victory gain, you will also suffer defeat. And if you neither know yourself nor your enemy, you'll succumb in every battle. Prepare, learn, and apply.
All right, thank you so much, Dane, Russell, Rory. My name is Alexa Bedford, Program Manager, Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance, and I have been your host at the JT Day. We provide access, influence, empowerment, and leadership. And to Russell said discipline. But I want to add it. You have cybersecurity discipline, doing your checks, multi-factor authentication, you having your password manager. Rory touched on that. Dane touched on people, process, and technology. The breach, more than likely, is going to come from an employee in your organization. So have them do some kind of training, whether that's a YouTube video, whether that is a certification. And I will add that Jamaica Technology and Digital Alliance are Fortinet Education Program partners. And we actually have a course once you are a member, Cybersecurity Threat Landscape. So if you want your employees to stay abreast on what is going on, I would advise that you do it. It's a starter course, it has videos. You do not want to be left behind. No, there is no reason as an organization that we need to take a reactive approach when it comes to cybersecurity. We need to change the culture of waiting for things to happen. Russell said it, this accident and waiting for things to happen. The technology is moving faster than the speed of light. We need to empower the directors, whoever it is, to say, listen, we have to protect data, we have to protect systems, we have to protect our processes to ensure that the breaches are not affecting the reputation of the organization and the belief in that you are not securing your customers and your vendors' data. And let me add, if you are under attack, if you have been hacked, malware, ransomware, it is your duty as an organization to report. Let me add, it is your duty as that organization to contact the Office of the Information Commissioner and let them know about that breach, because the fines are there. So let's just be clear, we're empowering everybody here. And if you are not a member of the JTDA, what are you waiting on? We are the professional organization for IT professionals. So check us out on LinkedIn, on our Instagram. We have so many amazing things coming again. And listen, for further information, please follow these gentlemen on LinkedIn. Simtai, Russell Rush, Alexander, Dane Daly, Rory Banks. Thank you once again. And to our lovely listeners, the attendees, thank
Hey, before you finish, can I say, it was a pleasure, by the way, to be on a panel like this. Big up yourself, Alexia, and just to be on the same panel as very talented people like Dane. Big up Rory, uh, big up David Wright as well. I'm saying big up all of Simtai. Also big up Trevor Forrest and big up Richard Weir from CyberCon. Everybody that's been helping me in my transition into this, as well as who was here tonight. Enough respect.
Thank you
Big
so
up,
much,
brother.
Russell, for the big up.
Welcome.
I never knew there were so many people ushering, but if they know Rory want to do any more big ups, they're open to the big ups.
I guess, well, big up the Lumu team as usual. They're tuning in. Appreciate my former families as well, where I used to work at. They're still very supportive. Big up STGC, as we should. And big up Alexa, right? I came through for you, so again, you're home one. Big up JTDA as well. So appreciate. I'm right here for you as usual.
Thank you.
Big up.
Rory?
Yeah, definitely it was a fun discussion, and as you can see, once we're having fun, the time goes by so quickly, right? We could be here for hours speaking. So definitely appreciate the conversation, Dean, Russell, Alexia, all of the participants. Big up Simtai, big up our customers, big up the entire Jamaica. We need to take security very seriously, and it's going to take each and every one of us to make that change. Because when the attackers are targeting Jamaica, they just randomly select anybody. That's how they look at it first. Because when they're utilizing the bots and it's automated, they grab an IP address, it could be your IP address. You'll never know. So we all have a role to play in cybersecurity, and we have to be important.
Love that, Rory. Just a quick reminder, we all have a role to play in cybersecurity. And just want to mention that we have led a delegation to the UK, business to business, exporting in partnership with the International Trade Organization to the UK, and they're currently on that journey, meeting investors, learning more. So I just want to big up our UK delegation that's leading Jamaica into more opportunities. I just wanted to mention them right there because I know it's big things. And I want to thank you, gentlemen, once again. Thanks, everybody. Follow us on social media. Look out, we have some amazing things coming this year as we provide access, influence, empowerment, and leadership. Have a great night.
Night, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Good night.
You
Nice,
guys.
nice.
Thanks, Ross. Thank you